Welcome to Humphrey Coliseum, Bulldog fans, and Steve. I guess it's glad to be back here, especially with the Bulldogs with a 9-point lead here over South Carolina in a game that they must win for their NCAA tournament hopes.
Yeah, and welcome home, David. It's good to have you back. It's not the same without Dave Murray here.
You notice he didn't say whether it's better or worse, just not the same.
Well, that's true. The jury is still out, but no, David, it's always glad to have you home. And yeah, I mean, Humphrey Coliseum has been pretty good for basketball this year, and Mississippi State in a must-win situation and playing pretty well at the moment.
You have to like how the Bulldogs play aggressively, both in offensive and defensive ends. Abdul-Adu is asserting himself. I know you talk about asserting himself in offense. He's a putback guy, but he's making the most of those opportunities, and almost some of the misses are now turning into assists the way he's playing. Tyson Carter, you know, direct correlation. When he has double digits, the Bulldogs should win games. Reggie Perry, not a great game tonight, but you can see the attention he draws defensively.
Yeah.
So this Bulldog team, they need to win these games, but this is a winnable game, as are the rest they play this season.
No doubt, and every game at this point feels like a must-win game. And you mentioned Reggie Perry too. I think the attention that he's drawing has opened some things up for Abdul-Adu to get better spacing, and as you mentioned, be the putback guy. And he's given South Carolina some trouble. They don't have anybody that can really compete with him.
You know, the Bulldogs had the big win at Arkansas this past week, and I enjoyed watching that from long distance. You see when this team plays well, there's nobody on the schedule, including the league leaders, that they cannot beat. By the same token, there are games when they don't play their best, they can certainly suffer an upset, as they did at Oxford a week ago. But this team, they know the stakes. Last year they had it a little bit easier getting the NCAAs, not easy, easier. Now they've dug themselves into a little bit of a hole, but as we said, they play South Carolina again. They have Alabama, they have Texas A&M, some low teams in the net rankings. They have a rematch at home with Ole Miss with a lot of motivation. This team probably needs to win 5 of 1, 5 out of 6 with 1 loss to get into the NCAAs at this point, maybe even an SEC tournament win as well.
David, I think that's the minimum at this point. I think you've got to go 5-1, and the 1 is important too. You know, maybe you could drop a game to Alabama, possibly South Carolina, and be able to overcome that. You can't afford to drop to one of these 5 or sub-500 teams.
Of course, that's basketball. We'll be talking post-game with Coach Ben Howland and the team, hopefully after another Bulldog victory. Steve, even though the weather's turning cool, tomorrow we get to talk to Coach Chris Lemonis, Oregon State coming to town. Now, the series has been revived, a 1 o'clock start on Friday, moved up a couple hours. We don't know what's going to happen with Saturday. Right now, it looks like Sunday should be clear, but you don't know what the weather will do, but we'll play that by ear. A big series for the Bulldogs. Maybe Oregon State, maybe not what they were a couple of years ago, but still a very good measuring stick for these Bulldogs.
Absolutely, and listen, and credit Chris Lemonis for scheduling, this series. I mean, a lot of people that will be scared of Oregon State, even in somewhat of a transition year. They're 2-2, but this is a team loaded with young talent that when the NCAA tournament field is announced, we expect them to be in the field. And so to get them early is probably good for State, because as we saw tonight, Wright State beats Louisville, a team that Mississippi State swept this weekend, and so that's a nice RPI boost. So we need State to take care of Oregon State, and then Oregon State to get hot and help the Bulldogs.
That certainly would help out in that West Coast. But again, these interconference matchups here in February do a lot when the NCAA ratings and rankings come out. As far away now as in May. All right, other news going on. Football. I believe while I was away, y'all hired a football coach.
We did, and I hope he met your approval, David. He's a little eccentric, kind of like you. But
I've enjoyed writing about Mike Leach, I'll put it that way. And Coach Leach, if you need a place to stay while you're looking for a home, you can use my place at Browning Creek. I think you would like my library with all the military history books in there.
Yeah, maybe so, Dave. It's interesting though. Listen, it's really not the typical Mississippi State thing to do on its surface. But when you look at what Mike Leach has done at Texas Tech and at Washington State, and those schools are not, shall we say, atypical for what he has done historically. And so Mississippi State kind of fits the pattern there. And I think the longer that he's been here, people have realized he actually is the right fit.
Not only that, he's brought in a top-notch staff. Of course, he brought his offensive staff intact from Washington State. He's got some good defensive guys. Zach Arnett from the West Coast, who brings a very aggressive style. Already, you've heard of comparisons, I know it, Steve, to what Joe Lee Dunn did with that 3-3-5 type set there, which actually, you look at this defensive line with what they have coming back, the linebacker safety, kind of is a good fit, certainly in the front 6 or so there. But we won't know for sure what's taking shape. Now, spring practice, we don't have a schedule yet. We expect to get it sometime, if not next week, then the next. We understand there'll be some open practices, even open scrimmages, which is a breath of fresh air for fans, certainly. But I think you just about charge admission to watch his scrimmages this year because, I'm sorry, I just gave John Cohen an idea. I probably shouldn't have done that. But everybody wants to get a piece of this because the Bulldogs are the hot topic again. I know where I am. I listen to a lot of ESPNU radio as well, and they're just still a buzz. I've had people call me and talk about it. On national radio, they asked me first, What does State think it is by getting rid of Joe Moorhead? Now they're going, wait a minute, if you did that to get Mike Leach, that's a win-win. And that's no affront to Coach Moorhead, who found a good job at Oregon. But Mike Leach, in every possible way, is an upgrade, both in the PR system and in what State wants to do in the football field.
And David, too, I mean, there's a lot of discussion now about moving that season opening game to a Thursday night to put it on television, because there is a lot of national intrigue about Mike Leach showing up at Mississippi State. And nothing's been finalized. I think it's important people understand that those discussions are ongoing. But it is, again, kind of lends itself, David, to the fact that Mississippi State has made a national hire.
And of course, I've been writing a few pieces on that as well. Alumni Magazine and others want to know about the Pirate angle, and I'm more interested, I think, in the Geronimo angle. But what you see as a guy, you can read too much into it, saying this is a guy who's used to working with less and winning, from the Pirate angle, the Geronimo, the insurgent warfare. The fact is, we watched him at Kentucky when he rewrote the offensive with Couch and playing for Hal Mumme. We watched him at Texas State. We watched him at Washington State. I thought the most telling point for an old dog like me, Steve, when he said the air raid is based on wishbone principles. And that's a throwback a bunch of us old dogs can really enjoy.
That's true. And along those same lines, too, Mike Leach has a lot of respect for Ron Polk. He mentioned that when he was a high school baseball coach, he used Ron Polk's, he called him Ronnie Polk, Ron Polk's playbook. But also, too, Zach Arnett mentioned that he almost feels like he's on hallowed ground here in Starkville, because he does consider him a bit of a Joe Lee Dunn disciple, and said that he might even consider giving up socks just out of respect for Joe Lee.
Well, we won't force them to do that, but let's just say Mississippi State has definitely won the PR wars this winter in football, but I think they're going to win a lot of games. They certainly won recruiting with Jay Costello making the decision to come here as a graduate transfer. Steve, what can you tell us now quickly about how Coach Leach will approach the spring as far as the roster? Because you mentioned evaluating the roster is his big deal, probably his priority, and then what can State do recruiting-wise when the transfer portal starts opening up?
Well, the bottom line is, right now State is actually oversigned a little bit. So, we expect some attrition this spring. There always is associated with the coaching search. But, there's been a coaching change and really a change in philosophy. And you see it in the strength and conditioning videos making the rounds on social media. So, we expect some attrition. But, speaking to some of the members of the staff, they're not exactly sure what the priorities would be should they hit the portal for some grad transfers. They're going to take a real inventory after and during spring practice sessions and then kind of adjust accordingly.
And I'm sure Steve and Paul and our team will have all the updates as recruiting goes on, as people take visits and make contact with Mississippi State, as they get a taste of what Coach Mike Leach and staff want to do here at Mississippi State. During the spring practice, we expect to have a schedule out soon as well, and we can update you on that. But for now, let's go out and watch the second half of the basketball game, a Bulldog victory, we certainly hope, and then let's play this series this weekend. I know it's going to be chilly, but make your plans to be here for Doolittle Field to watch the Diamond Dogs. We'll have some news tomorrow out of 2 o'clock press conference with Coach Chris Lamonis, and we'll update you from there. Otherwise, let's get ready for a big weekend here in Bulldog Country. For our team here for Gene's Page 24/7, Steve Robertson, this is David Murray.